First Minister, this morning you shared a video from your mother-in-law, Elizabeth. She's trapped in Gaza with your father-in-law, your brother-in-law, your niece and nephew. It's very upsetting to watch it. Elizabeth's clearly very distressed. She talks about 1 million people without food or water, nowhere to go, trying to get out of North Gaza. She speaks of people in hospital unable to leave, and she asks, where's humanity, where's people's hearts in the world to let this happen? Why did you share the video?
It was a really hard video to watch for both my wife and I, but all we can do in our situation is try to tell people's story. I cannot tell you, Beth, how powerless and helpless I feel. Not just for my own mother-in-law and father-in-law. So what's your instinct as a family member is to protect your family. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're First Minister, whether you're a journalist, whoever you are, your first instinct is to protect your family as best you can. And I am completely powerless. The only thing I can do is share their story.
You feel that you can't protect them, there's nothing you can do at the moment?
Very powerless. All I can do is share their story. Of course I can do what I've done in the last few days, which is appeal to the international community to set up humanitarian corridors, to end collective punishment, to allow supplies to come in, to allow the innocent people of Gaza to leave. And that's all I can do. But really it is for the international community have to step up, not for the sake of my mother-in-law and father-in-law, but there are 2.2 million people in Gaza. We all know the conditions in Gaza. The vast majority of them have nothing to do with Hamas. And no doubt will have been appalled by what would have happened on those terrible scenes on Saturday morning. They cannot pay the price for the actions of Hamas.
Elizabeth ends the video with, "May God help us, goodbye." Do you fear that you'll never see them again?
You know, it's a worry. You know, every day we look at our phones every night. My wife will look at her phone every hour because at night is when we're most distressed, as you can imagine. And I do not know, I genuinely do not know if I will see my mother-in-law and father-in-law again. Nadia doesn't know if she's going to see her mum and dad again. And all we can do is watch the news, look at the rolling coverage, wait for messages, and we can go hours without seeing those messages, and hope and pray. Now that's just my experience. How many people across the world are feeling the same? And what about those people in Gaza? Who again are innocent, men, women and children. Nothing to do with those terrible attacks, disgraceful terror attacks we saw this Saturday morning. They don't know what is going to happen to them. They're being told to leave and they have no way to leave. And that's why the collective punishment is just not justified in any way, shape or form.
How do you explain this to your little daughter about her grandparents?
It's hard. I mean, our 14-year-old understands the situation. She looks on social media, she sees what's happening. She's in a great deal of distress, and I try to distract her as best I can. For my 4-year-old Amal, we tell her that Granny is scared of the thunder, and she keeps asking to speak to her Gran, and you know, at times we can get through, most of the time we can't. And then she keeps asking us, is Granny still scared of the thunder? And we're saying she's still scared of the thunder. And you know, she asked last night, will Granny be back for Halloween? Because my daughter loves Halloween like every kid loves Halloween, and my mother-in-law helps with the face painting every Halloween. And we said, of course, she will be back, but in my heart, I don't know if she will.
I'm sorry, this is obviously really, I mean, you look really tired. I mean, you're presumably not sleeping.
Yeah, I think it's hard for all of us, anybody that has family in this situation. Look, I spent a lot of last night with the Jewish community in the synagogue in the south of Glasgow, and you know, I met with the mother of Bernard Cowan. Bernard Cowan's a Scottish member of our Jewish community who was tragically killed in those terrible terrorist attacks. And she and we just hugged each other and we cried, because that is, I suppose, at the essence of what we're dealing with is common humanity. The innocent people, be they Israeli, be they Palestinian, who have nothing to do with the geopolitical situation, and the ones that are being punished. And I completely understand and respect that Israel has a right to protect itself from terror, but that cannot be at the price of innocent men, women and children who have nothing to do with those attacks. And that collective punishment has to be condemned.
You said But before I go on, how is Nadia doing today? Because she was on Sky News yesterday. She did a very powerful interview. Obviously, things have changed overnight. How is she today?
The truthful answer is she's in complete distress. And my job, before being First Minister, is to be a husband to Nadia, to be a father to my kids. And I take that responsibility exceptionally seriously. So I'm there to try to support Nadia as much as I can. But I also have a country and a party to run, which is incredibly important for me. So we're doing our best. We have family here in Scotland and friends who've been incredibly supportive, to which I'm very grateful for. But my wife is utterly devastated, heartbroken. And it's why she's speaking out, because all I think we can do is, as well as calling for humanitarian corridors and so on, is tell the stories of the people that do not have a voice.
It must be a huge strain for you, because as you said, you're a husband and father first, but you've got your conference coming and you're the First Minister of Scotland.
You know, when it comes to conference, I've been in the SNP for almost 20 years. I've always regarded the SNP as a family. It can be a dysfunctional family at times, of course, like any family can be, have our disagreements. But we're a family, and I've taken great solace in the messages I've had, actually not just from my own party, I have to be absolutely honest, really people from across the political spectrum and across the world have reached in. That gives me and my family great comfort. As I say, that job is important, is my first job, being a husband and a father, but also equally my job as First Minister and party leader is one that I take exceptionally seriously and that I'm, of course, concentrating on too.
You talk about feeling powerless and all you can do is share the story in the hope that it garners a response. You also said that the Israelis know where your family are. You said the Israeli government know where our family is. They know the coordinates. To that extent, my hope is that they won't be hit. Have you managed to communicate with the Israelis at all? Have you asked them to avoid targeting the house where your family are?
So our main conduit is, of course, as you'd understand, would be the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So the British government, the Foreign Office, are our main conduit. If you'll forgive me, I don't want to go into too much detail about what conversations have taken place or not, because it's still a very difficult and precarious situation, and they're in Gaza, which is largely under the control, as you know, of Hamas. So you'll forgive me, I'll not go into the intricate kind of minutiae of the detail, but the Foreign Office continues to be the main conduit by which we interact.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister about it? Have you asked him to help?
No, I have written to James Cleverly, and although I have had a junior Foreign Office Minister, Lord Ahmed, be in touch, and I was grateful for his assistance. I'm disappointed, I have to say, that James Cleverly himself hasn't been in touch, because we've told him there's 2 UK citizens. I mean, he was in Israel, he was not necessarily far away from Gaza. I'm not suggesting he would have gone, but he could have clearly picked up the phone to give me an assurance that they are working day and night to get those 2 UK citizens out of Gaza. But from James Cleverly, I'm pretty disappointed.
So the Foreign Secretary hasn't been in touch, the Prime Minister hasn't been in touch?
No, neither of them.
How do you feel about that? Disappointed?
I'm pretty angry that the Foreign Secretary, I'm not necessarily expecting the Prime Minister to pick up the phone, but I would have thought that the Foreign Secretary, and not just for me, I've also asked for details around other Scots that might be trapped in Gaza, other Scots in Israel that might be looking to get out. But the fact that the Foreign Secretary has, well, so far ignored my letter, but also not been in touch, it makes me angry. But I'd be more interested in getting the Foreign Secretary to speak up about creating a humanitarian corridor to allow supplies to come in and allow people of Gaza to leave. And
First Minister, you've talked about, you just talked about it, about the collective punishment. You presumably, you would, urge restraint in Gaza by the Israelis in terms of bombardment of the Strip, a potential invasion force? What would you like to see happen?
Whatever tactic is used, whether it's a ground invasion, it's aerial bombardment, it's naval through the sea, whatever the operational tactic is that's used, the message is, I think, should be pretty simple, that the innocent men, women and children of Gaza should not be the ones that are suffering as they currently are. Collective punishment cannot be justified, neither legally but morally cannot be justified. So any of us that care about humanity, which is I think the vast majority of people, would say that collective punishment, targeting, understanding that Israel has to respond to the atrocities it saw on Saturday, we all understand that and accept that, It cannot be at the price of innocent people.
So, because I mean, Israel's response would be, you know, if we do nothing, terrorism wins. You don't think they should have a ground force go in?
No, I keep going back to the point I make, Beth, that whatever military tactic they use is for them to decide, whether it's
Yes.
ground, aerial, naval, that's for them to decide. But what cannot happen, regardless of that military tactic, is for innocent men, women and children to pay the price. What has to be done now, immediately, today, is the opening up of a humanitarian corridor. That humanitarian corridor has to allow Gazans, innocent men, women and children, to leave, and it has to allow supplies, medical supplies, food, fuel, clean drinking water to come in.
Thank you for talking to us for so long about that.
That's okay.
I know it must be very difficult for you at the moment, so I appreciate you.
Look, I understand.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.